September 1944. Europe was aflame, the Allies surging forward after breaking out of Normandy. Paris had been freed, Brussels liberated. Yet, as Montgomery prepared his boldest plan, Market Garden, the world's eyes would later turn to Arnhem. But before Arnhem, before Nijmegen, the entire operation hinged on one lonely canal crossing in northern Belgium. Few remember it today, but its capture would decide the fate of the offensive. This was Joe's Bridge, a place where courage, speed, and sacrifice collided. A forgotten victory, hidden in the shadow of larger battles, yet vital to history's turning tide. The Bocholt-Herentals Canal was not just a ribbon of water, it was a defensive wall. Running through northern Belgium, it was part of the German strategy to slow the Allied advance toward the Netherlands. Every crossing was either fortified or wired with explosives, ready to be blown the moment British troops approached. For Montgomery, who envisioned Market Garden as a lightning thrust across Holland into Germany, the canal represented the first barrier. If XXX Corps could not cross it quickly, the plan would stumble before it began. At Lommel, the canal was spanned by a steel bridge, bridge number 9. It was nothing spectacular, just girders and planks, but in September 1944, it became a prize of immense value. German engineers had packed it with charges, their fingers ready to trigger destruction at the first sign of an enemy attack. To the British, it was not just another crossing, it was the essential starting line. Without it, Market Garden could not launch. Every man in XXX Corps, every tank, every supply truck would have to pass over this one bridge. The future of the offensive, perhaps the war itself, began with this modest structure on the canal. The responsibility for capturing the bridge fell to the Irish Guards, an armoured regiment forged in battle. At their head stood Lieutenant-Colonel John Ormsby Evelyn Vandeleur, known simply as Joe. He was a tall, striking figure, known for his daring leadership and his ability to inspire confidence in his men. The bridge would later bear his name, though in truth its nickname came partly from the Irish Guard's own engineers, often called Joe's Troop. Joe understood the challenge. The Germans would fight to keep the canal line intact, and their engineers would do everything in their power to destroy the bridge before it could be taken. His orders were clear: advance fast, strike hard, and seize it intact. There would be no time for hesitation. A moment's delay could mean the bridge gone in flames and steel twisted into the water. The men of the Irish Guards prepared with grim determination. They had fought through France and Belgium, seen the cost of hesitation, and knew the task ahead would be brutal. Still, morale was high. Liberated civilians lined the roads, cheering the Guards forward. Yet every man knew that the battle at the canal would test not just their strength, but their speed and precision under fire. The attack began on the 10th of September, 1944. At first light, the Irish Guards assembled near a zinc factory at Overpelt. From there, their armoured column roared forward, engines growling, treads grinding the earth beneath. Ahead lay the bridge at Lommel, held by German defenders who knew its importance, as well as they did. As the Guards advanced, the first shots rang out. German machine guns spat fire across the canal, while artillery shells screamed overhead. The air was filled with smoke and dust, the ground shaking with each explosion. But the Guards did not falter. Infantry dashed alongside the tanks, trading fire as they closed the distance. The battle intensified at the water's edge, where the bridge loomed ahead, its steel frame bristling with danger. Under relentless pressure, the German defenders wavered. The Irish Guards surged onto the bridge, pouring fire into enemy positions. Within hours, the impossible had been achieved. The bridge was captured intact. The explosives, though placed, had not been detonated. Whether through surprise, confusion, or sheer speed of the assault, the Germans had failed to destroy their prize. In that moment, Joe's Bridge passed into Allied hands, scarred by fire, but still standing, ready for the task ahead. Victory was far from secure. The Irish Guards now controlled the bridge, but it was still a trap waiting to spring. German engineers had laced it with demolition charges, hidden under planks, tied to girders, trailing wires into the canal below. At any moment, one missed fuse could bring the entire structure down. Into this danger rushed the Royal Engineers. These men were not infantrymen or tankers. Their battlefield was steel, wire and explosives. Crawling over the bridge under sniper fire and artillery bursts, they worked with steady hands. Wires were traced and cut. Fuses were yanked free and tossed into the canal. Blocks of explosives, enough to obliterate the span, were dragged away or thrown into the water below. Every action risked detonation. The work was tense, minute by minute, carried out with the knowledge that one mistake could mean death for them and disaster for the army waiting behind. Yet by the end of the day, the bridge was safe. It had been claimed not just by force of arms, but by skill, nerve, and the quiet bravery of men who fought with wire cutters instead of rifles. Joe's bridge was no longer a target for destruction. It was an asset for the Allies. The Germans, furious at the loss, did not abandon the canal line quietly. For days after its capture, Joe's bridge was hammered by enemy artillery. Shells rained down, turning the area into a wasteland of craters and shattered trees. Infantry units attempted counterattacks, launching sudden strikes across the water and even desperate bayonet charges against the Guards' positions. Each time, the Irish Guards responded with determination, repelling the enemy and holding their fragile prize. The bridge itself bore the scars. Planks were splintered, rails twisted, the surface pocked with shell impacts. Yet it endured, and the Guards endured with it. To them, the bridge was no longer just an objective, it was a symbol. They had been given the task of holding it, and they would not yield. The Germans recognised its value too. Their repeated attempts to retake it proved how vital the crossing was to both sides. Every attack was a reminder that though the Allies had advanced deep into Belgium, the war was far from won. For the men defending Joe's bridge, there was no question. This battle, though overlooked by history, was as real and desperate as any fought on the road to Arnhem. While soldiers clashed over the bridge, civilians lived in terror nearby. In Lommel, the German SS gathered 40 Belgian men, women and children, preparing to use them as human shields. In their desperation, the Germans were willing to sacrifice innocent lives to hold their ground. For the families, fear was overwhelming, uncertain hours where life or death hung on the outcome of the battle. But the Irish Guards' speed saved them. By capturing the bridge quickly and forcing German retreat, the Guards prevented the SS from carrying out their threat. For those civilians, Joe's bridge was not merely a military victory, it was salvation. Liberation came in the roar of British tanks, in the green uniforms of guardsmen moving through their streets, in the sudden realisation that they had been spared. In every war, battles are measured in maps and objectives, but for those who lived in their shadow, battles are remembered for what they cost and what they saved. At Joe's bridge, the price was paid by soldiers under fire and engineers cutting fuses. The reward was not only a passage for an army, but the lives of ordinary people who might otherwise have perished in the chaos of retreating forces. With the bridge secure, engineers strengthened its structure for the weight of an army. Planks were reinforced, roadways cleared, approaches widened. Behind the canal, XXX Corps massed for the assault. Montgomery's daring plan was ready to unfold. On the 17th of September 1944, Operation Market Garden began. From Joe's bridge, the roar of engines filled the air as Sherman tanks, trucks and armoured vehicles streamed across. It was the first step of the Garden portion of the offensive, the ground advance that would link up with paratroopers dropped in Eindhoven, Nijmegen and Arnhem. Soldiers waved to cheering civilians as they thundered north, unaware of the brutal battles that awaited them on the narrow road ahead. The bridge had become the gateway to Hell's Highway, the narrow route 30 Corps would follow through Holland. Every supply truck, every tank, every battalion that took part in Market Garden crossed first at Joe's bridge. Without it, the operation could never have begun. Though Arnhem would become the tragic symbol of Market Garden's failure, it was here, on this quiet Belgian canal, that the great gamble was launched. Joe's bridge was not the end of the story, it was the beginning. Today, Joe's bridge stands in silence. Cars and bicycles pass where once tanks clattered and soldiers fought for survival. On its banks, memorials remember the Irish Guards who captured and defended it. Yet its name rarely appears in the grand narratives of war. Arnhem overshadows it, history forgets it. But without Joe's bridge, Arnhem would never have been fought. In steel and stone, it represents courage, speed and sacrifice, a small victory that carried immense consequence. To remember Market Garden truly, we must begin where it began, at Joe's Bridge.